Hi, it's Andy again, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to get up and running with Android Studio, the first release, from scratch. Now I've completely removed Android Studio from my computer, and this is actually a retake because my first tutorial video went for 40 minutes but the sound stopped at 25. So I'm going to try to do this kind of as an abbreviated version. Hopefully we'll be up and running in much less time than 25 minutes. Uh, to cut time, I've already downloaded the file here. You can download it from developer.android.com and then select the Develop tab, select Tools, and it'll show up as the first item here. Since I'm using Linux, it's already selected Linux. Once you select it, agree to the terms, and it'll download into your Downloads folder. Installation procedures very similar between the three operating systems, Mac, Linux, and Windows. However, there are some caveats to Linux once you get started. Um, and Another item that is available on Windows and Mac is the Intel's Haxum that is not available on Linux, but it's not necessary. So let's go ahead and start with unzipping uh, our download. We'll extract it to the desktop. Close. All right, so here's our folder now. For the first run, we're going to have to open up Terminal. We're going to have to navigate to this folder here. It's inside the Android Studio /bin. We need to run this this command. So if we go to Properties, we can get the actual path, and I like to just copy and paste it. And then to run it, hit /studio.sh, and that'll run. Okay, since I've deleted everything, I don't have a previous settings file to go off of, so we'll use as this is a new install. That's setting up Android Studio. Your time to load may vary. I find that it loads a lot quicker in Linux for me than it does on Windows. One of the prerequisites will be that you have to have the Java JDK installed in order to run Android Studio. So here's the setup wizard. It does provide one in Linux. So let's go through it. We're going to do a standard install. Yeah, see, the reason why we don't use Intel Haxum on Linux is because there's a kernel mode virtual machine. That's a software package that's built in that runs very fast as well. That's primarily why I use Linux for all these videos as well. Okay, so here are all the packages that are going to download by default. So the first time, they're going to be mostly Android L based, and the tools, and also the SDK platform 21, which is Android L, the support library, sources for Android L, the system image, the x86 that's going to allow us to run in the fast virtualization mode. Alright, so let's download all of that. And this should take a few minutes. So I'm going to pause the video while this is all downloading. Okay, so this is finished downloading the initial components. What happened is now there's a new folder in my home directory called Android, and inside that is the SDK. This is all what we just downloaded to get up and running, because the Android Studio requires the Android SDK. It also requires it to be outside of the same directory as Android Studio, as there have been issues updating previous versions when the directory of the SDK was inside the Android Studio directory due to files being deleted and stuff like that. So here's the new SDK. All right, once we have that, we have our Android Studio up and running. So let's start a new project so that we can take a look at Android Studio. I don't really care what it's called or what it does. It's going to just be a blank program to kind of get up and running. And the first thing I'm going to do is create a little point on this so that I can save it to the toolbar and launch it directly from the toolbar, so I don't have to run the terminal every single time that I want to run Android Studio. There's also a new version, 1.0.2, I know is available, but the one that you can download as of today, January 6th, from the website is 1.0.1. And there will be minor bug fixes, I'm sure. Okay, so it's loading our project. Okay. So this is going to be a hello world activity program that it creates for us on this blank activity. It doesn't actually do anything. So like I said, the first thing I'm going to do is create a little tool, create a desktop entry, create it for all users even though I'm the only user. Okay. Alright, so let me now exit Android and start it from the system menu. Alright, so let's try closing this. Let's exit this and exit that. And we should be able to type in Android Studio. Boom, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to do. Obviously that won't be an issue on Windows and Linux, or Windows and Mac. That's a Linux based thing because we downloaded it from the internet and not from the store. Okay, so we'll move this. It's now locked onto that launcher, so I'll be able to launch it from here in the future. Okay, so let's take a peek around Android Studio. On the left tab here, we have our project tab. This allows us to view our files in a different arrangement. So this is the newest arrangement, at least the newest default arrangement that Android Studio comes in. If you want your traditional layout, you can change it to packages. And this is exactly how it's laid out into project. This is exactly how it's laid out into the folders inside your directory for your projects. So inside the application, there's another folder called app, another folder inside that called source, another one main, and then that has your Java files and your resource files. But the newest one is this structure called Android, and it splits up the files automatically for you. So I guess it's an easier representation of how your files are going to be arranged out. So your manifest, you'll have your Android manifest in there, your Java files, and your resource files. Okay, so let's start and take a look at our SDK manager, which is the little guy with the little download icon underneath him. And this is where if we wanted to download additional packages, other versions of Android to build against, like Android TV, Android Wear, the 64-bit image if we want to use that. The support library, I guess it only supported, downloaded the repository but not the library. Alright, so as this is downloading, I'll jump into some more. Okay, so this is the image that was actually downloaded, which is the Intel x86 32-bit Atom image. So with that, we can actually create an emulator. So let's do that right now. This is the AVD manager. Looks like I kept the device even though I thought I deleted all of it. So let's create a new device from scratch. Okay, let's say a Nexus 6. All right. It'll be running Lollipop, 32-bit with the Google APIs. That's good. And we can click next. If you wanted to change any of this, I highly recommend keeping the host GPU. However, you can't take screenshots through Android Studio. So if you need screenshots from your emulator on different devices like a tablet, uncheck this, rerun it. It's going to run terrible, but you might be able to get your screenshots that way that you need. Another thing is we can create a larger SD card, 500 megabyte SD card on there. No cameras. I actually do have a camera, so I can do the webcam and make it a front-facing camera. All right, so enable keyboard input. That allows us to actually use our own keyboard. It hides the on-screen keyboard on the emulator. I highly recommend you toggling between these if you have text input into your apps to see if your views are going to be covered up by the keyboard, because they won't pop up if you have this enabled. All right, so we're going to create our virtual device. So let's run it. Okay, hit the play icon. You get these 4 bars on the back. This is your AVD, so your virtual device that gives you little status updates on how it's running. The Android tab right now is not really doing anything because there's no devices, but this is where you can see your logcats. And then terminal allows you to do a terminal emulator. So if you need to stop the debugging bridge and restart it, you can do that from here. Push files, it's your standard terminal emulator. You can do other stuff from it too, but the usefulness is that it's going to be already in your application. So if you need to push files to your device, this is an easy way to do it. You don't have to switch to open up a new terminal window to do so. And I haven't actually used To Do ever, so I don't really know what it does. Okay, so our emulator is still booting right here. And I like the fact that they actually put the device around it now. That's new in the latest tools that came out with the 1.0 release. Okay. Now, I apologize for all the jitteriness. My video card is now ancient compared, so you'll see crazy stuff like that. But let's try running this application that literally does nothing. And if we open up the Android tab, we can actually see the emulator doing everything that it's doing. And I'm waiting for it to, it's still building the project right here. So you'll get notifications on the bottom here for Gradle tasks and everything. It's a background task. Let's put it back down. So once Gradle is finished building the project, we'll get a little pop-up window asking us where we want to run it. And we have an emulator running, so it's going to pick that by default. If you have a device that has the debugging bridge enabled, USB debugging enabled, it will show up here as well, and you can run it on your own device. Okay, so now it's gonna send it to, you can actually see the status over here on run. So it's installing our application. And there we go. There's application, automatically pulls up the Android tab on the bottom. And it's also going to only show up debugging messages based on our application by default. Now we can change this to no filters and it shows up everything that's running on the emulator, but that's not as helpful. Alright, so that's how you run an application. Let's talk about the tabs over here. When you're running a resource, you'll have the ability to see what you're building. And this is our layouts example here. If you go into the text editor, you get to see how it's built based on XML code, and you also get a live preview. As you change items here, they change here. So let's say I take out this text view, it disappears on the right. Okay, you can also change the device that you're previewing. So right now it's on a Nexus 4, but I can change it to a Nexus 6, and it'll update the image and resources based on that. If I wanted to create a landscape version of it, we can do that by doing clicking these, and it'll create a new folder with the same file name. Java files don't get to preview because they're not layouts. So you have your key issues here on the left, and a lot of items will be kind of shorthand. If you just click on it, it will expand it into a larger view. Let's see what else is on here. If you need to manually build Gradle, you can do that by clicking this button here. You shouldn't need to really do that because every single change you make in the build.gradle files will have another icon here to tell you that you've made changes and that you should sync. So you can either click this or up here. This is an older tool, Android Device Monitor. You'll need an emulator running or a device connected to be able to use it. But it allows you to access the files directly on the device if you need them. You can spoof GPS locations. There's a bunch of various tools. Screenshots were built into it in the past, but you can do that now down here. The first icon allows you to take screenshots, and the second icon lets you take a video recording. And so let's see, we have our project structure here. This allows you to add items to your app. If you needed to add other libraries, you can totally do it here from the project structure very easily. Here's our settings. I personally like the Darkula theme, so I like to do that first, is go into appearance, change it to Darkula, apply, and I like this all black theme, and we'll restart it. Okay, so once this loads up, we'll have a few other icons here. If you wanted to select a separate module to run, we only have one that's called app, so we can select app to run, and that's it. But if we had multiple modules, we can run them individually. To test them on a device or an emulator, we can click this button or select run. If you have a debugging application, you can select the debugging one, and it has a little bit more tools for squashing bugs. Okay. This allows you to build the project to make it. If you're going to be publishing your app, you're going to need to know this build variants here. You can't publish an app that's in debugging mode. You'll have to switch it to release, and that allows you to sign it and publish it to the store. You can't run release build variants onto the emulator, so it's good to know where these are so that you can toggle back and forth between release and debug. Okay, so we'll take that down. Let's see, other tools is actually the check for update, which should prompt us for an update, is right there on Linux and Windows. For Mac, it's somewhere over here by the Apple icon. Let's see. To tell you the truth, I don't really use too many of these. Nifty little tool that I'm going to try to start using again and see if it plays nice with the recording software is this presentation mode. Yeah, it doesn't seem to like the... Okay, there we go. Doesn't really seem to like the recording software very much though, so it's very hard for me to get out of presentation mode. So that's why I don't really use it that much. It's really the full screen part that messes it up. Let's see. And to my knowledge, there isn't a key combination that I can get out of it. That I have found. There we go. Okay. So now I can get out of presentation mode. So I understand that would be a lot easier for you guys to see what I do on YouTube, but it's just too much of a pain to go in and out of. If they build a quick key combination like this, I would totally use it, but as you can see, it's kind of a pain to use. Alright, so here's a quick introduction into how to get up and running on Android Studio. If you have any questions, leave me a message.